If you're watching this channel, it's because you don't enjoy watching the world squander what Christendom built, but you want to do your part. And chances are you've heard me mention a great means by doing just that. Email made by and for Catholics. Check out fidei.email. That's FIDEI.email. Built for Catholic individuals, families, organizations, and groups. They're private, secure, and of course, they're Catholic. And they're offering 2 months off on your first year for an annual subscription if you enter the coupon code Return to Tradition without spaces. That's the name of this channel, without spaces, at checkout. We consistently see a narrative form in discussions about the state of the church. And one of those narratives is that the state of the church is fine. Everything is okay. Go about your business. Nothing to see here. Look at all the new Catholics coming in, especially in Africa. And look at how much energy Catholics have, maybe out in the secular political realm. We're so important that they pander to us. And look at how wonderful things are. Yeah, my parish is slightly conservative and it's full. Those are usually coping mechanisms to ignore the truth. And the truth of the state of the church is this, that every measurable metric is in decline, except maybe for the ordination of permanent deacons. Every other metric is in decline. We have a new report that just shows that the most important stat of all is in massive decline. And unfortunately, most people who see it, I think, will try to make excuses for it. We sometimes talk about the effect a pope has. This is usually measured in things like conversions of adults or in young men entering seminary and the ordination of priests. The Benedict effect, the John Paul II effect, the Francis effect, right? That's usually how this is talked about. We've already seen that the Francis effect is a decline in ordinations and a decline in seminarians. In fact, there might actually be a weird reverse Francis effect, that what few vocations there are increasingly conservative and traditionally minded seminarians. I reported on this a few days ago. Go review that report if you like. But there is another indicator of what the true Francis effect is, and that's disinterest. This report comes from Catholic Culture with this headline: Worldwide baptisms fall over 15% in 6 years. 15%! That's not a small number. Worldwide baptismal numbers. This includes places that we keep telling ourselves that the faith is vibrant in. Africa, parts of South America, parts of Asia. But the reality is, worldwide baptisms in the Catholic Church are down and down massively. This while also Pentecostal groups, non-denominational rock and roll charismatic Christian groups are making giant inroads in Africa and South America, spreading their false gospel. They have convinced themselves that the people there have never heard the gospel, these traditionally Catholic places. And they go there, and the American bishops do nothing about it. And then they lead souls out of the one church where you can find salvation into their own man-made traditions. That is what is going on here. What is the cause of this decline in baptisms of children and everything else? It's part of the other declines going on. The sacrament of holy matrimony has steadily been declining in the number of times it has been administered to the faithful in the last decade, which then leads to fewer children being baptized, obviously, but also adult baptisms are going to be counted among this. These numbers are a very real indicator of things in the state of the church. And remember, the church keeps a lot of data, a lot of records about who is baptized. If you move, let's say you have young children and they get baptized at a parish and then you move half the country away and they need to be, a few years later, they need to be catechized. So you want to enroll them in the catechesis class. Well, you're probably going to be required to show your baptismal records from your parish. So you have to contact the diocese or your parish to get them sent to your new parish. This is true if, say, you are in Sri Lanka and you move to Brooklyn and you have a child baptized in Sri Lanka at a Catholic parish, and then you move to Brooklyn and you want them catechized. You will need to contact your parish and get them to send you the records. Doesn't matter how far away they are, that's how it works. And it's from that data that we get all of this stuff. So, from the article, quote, The number of baptisms administered in the church worldwide plunged from over 16 million in 2016 to 13,327,037 in 2022, a decline of 17% over 6 years, according to the appendix to statistics published by the Fides news agency. There were 18.1 million baptisms in 1991, 17.932 million baptisms in 1998, and 18.4 million baptisms in 2000. Between 2001 and 2016, the number of baptisms annually stood between 16 million and 18 million, falling slightly below 16 million only in 2015. The decline in baptisms was particularly pronounced in 2020, the year of the affliction-related closing of society, but has continued steadily since then, from 14 million in 2020 to just over 13.7 million in 2021 to 13.3 million in 2022. The church has also experienced an 11-year decline in the number of major seminarians, a decline particularly pronounced since the end of 2019. End quote. See, all of those numbers are related? This should not surprise anybody, but it's particularly interesting that this has been a decline not just for the last 6 years, but there had been a slow decline noted in the data since the 1990s, the early 1990s, which some people remember as the good old days of a vibrant American Catholicism or a vibrant Western European Catholicism. This is the effect of the post-conciliar era, with ambiguity in teaching coming from the top regardless of who sat on the throne of Peter. An attempt to open the windows of the church to the world. Hence the ambiguity, hence the unwillingness of the church to often take hard public positions. Those numbers started in the decline before the McCarrick problems broke in the early 2000s. All of those things show that there is a systemic rot going on in the church. And unfortunately, no one is willing to address it. If you want your baptismal numbers to increase, your priests from the AMBO need to teach the hard truths of the faith. Find a pastoral way to communicate them. But you need to teach the hard truths of the faith. Because one of the issues we have today is that when you think for just a couple of minutes about the stuff you hear from the AMBO or from Pope Francis, and you watch the ecumenical dialogue going on, you begin to ask yourself this basic question. If all those schismatic groups, Protestant groups and others, are valid ways to salvation, why would I be a member of the hardest church, hardest religion that is still Christian religion? Why would I tell my sins to a priest in a confessional if I can just pray directly to God to not be in a state of sin anymore? Why would I do all of these things if all those other ways are valid? Catholicism is a tad bit harder than this sort of man-centered Protestantism that, at least in Western countries, we compete with. On top of that is the very real fact that the church has for decades been playing all too close and too nice with the secular world, a secular world that has grown increasingly hostile to the gospel and to the church, to the point where all too many Catholics now believe the evil values of the secular world. And the church, again, rarely says anything about this. And when they do, they get wishy-washy with it, saying that the sacrificial offering to Moloch, as I have to call it on this platform, is the same thing morally as widespread unemployment, if you can believe that nonsense. But they say that, and they have said that for 30 years. It causes people to leave. The fewer Catholics that you have who are fervent or at least practicing the faith in a way that conforms to the church's teaching is going to result in fewer baptisms. It is as simple as that. What do you think about this? Are you surprised by these numbers at all? How long do you think it'll be before it dips below 10 million baptisms a year? Again, we were at 13.3 million in 2022. How long before it dips below 10 million? Let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. If you've ever thought about supporting the work of Return to Tradition on these platforms, you can hit that join button below, or in the description box below, you'll find links to Patreon and Subscribestar and the rest of it. Though your support does help keep these daily messages coming. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.